So in scenario 3, my objective is more nefarious. I want to kill the radio on the CubeSat, rendering it unreachable and useless. This scenario builds on top of scenario 1 and 2. So from scenario 1, we already know the IP address of the assets, the services running, the web applications that are running, and the username and password of a user. Additionally, from scenario 2, I know the access credentials to the database. So then how do I now go about killing the radio? So the high-level steps that I'd be performing are, I'd first try and find all the available documentation about the CubeSat, the interfaces, and what kind of applications it support, and so on. Then I'll try to create a malicious application, deliver the malicious application to the ground server, try to upload the malicious application to the satellite, and then execute that application, thereby killing the radio. So the first step of recon, I start by gathering any available documentation for this service. Any presentations, source code, or wikis. Note that I can gather this information by searching the internet, as customers may make their code and documentation public on services like GitHub and so on. What I was trying to do was to just find any wikis that may be available under the quicksat.com domain. And I found this one, which was wiki.quicksat.com. And here you'll see that there's a ton of information about the hardware, the different kinds of radios that are supported. There's also information about how do you actually write software for this interface. Especially the one that is really interesting is this command architecture, how the commands work, and how you could actually add your own commands. So after going through all this, I had a good understanding of how I could actually create an application for this CubeSat. Now, as you may recall, we have this user, Aaron, whose credentials we have access to. So let's see what we can learn more about the system by logging in as Aaron. So after a little bit of exploration, I've discovered this interesting shared folder. And there are a bunch of documentation, what looks like some code, some Python code. And so that intrigued me. As you can see, there is some Python code that is here in this directory. Something that was very interesting about this was, if I open this, it actually contains code that looks like something that would run on the satellite. And after reading through it, I was convinced that this is something that the satellite would execute. It has all the classes, it has all the functions that are necessary. And this looks to be like some sort of a sensor that this code is controlling. In addition, you also find that if you go to the CubeSat user interface, that file name of that code matches this name here. So it looks like this CubeSat is actually reading the code that's in this directory. That's a guess. So one thing that I could do is, if I could actually modify this code to disable the radio on the CubeSat, I could then re-upload it from here using this upload interface here. And hopefully that will kill the CubeSat. After a little bit of trial and error, I eventually settled on this code, which disables the syncing between the ground and the CubeSat. And as shown here, I could achieve this with just a few lines of code. This requires a little trial and error, and also understanding the documentation, looking at some of the other example Python files, just to make sure that you understand how the spacecraft and the CubeSat communicate and so on. But it wasn't that bad. Now let's see if this actually works. I'm going to save this script and come to this user interface. Click on this. Let's see if I can upload this. So the CubeSat is now, when the next time the CubeSat reaches the looks for any new commands on the ground, this should hopefully get uploaded. As you can see here, the last time sync was at 5:06. After a few minutes, we can see that the status code here has changed, which means the code is now on the CubeSat, and it gives me this start app. So hopefully, if I start this app, it should kill the application. It should kill the communication between the CubeSat and the ground. Now, unfortunately, there won't be any indication here that that has happened. What would happen is you would stop seeing this this timestamp update. In the next video, you will learn more about what the operator of the CubeSat will see from Andrew and what he sees at his end. And he can show you better how this action has disabled the communication between the CubeSat and the ground. You can easily see that this is very difficult to debug and reverse, especially once your CubeSat is in orbit. So in this scenario, the vulnerabilities that made this hack successful were the fact that the attacker had a lot of access to the system and was able to gather enough information, study the system functions to carry out a more damaging attack. Advanced persistent threats would often carry out such attacks. A defense in depth strategy, along with basic cyber hygiene, should help mitigate a lot of these attacks.